Here, yeah, that's what we got. Can't have any more or any less.
I'll call this regular meeting of the Manan Village Council. I'm going down. Alyssa does that to me every time. I'll call this regular council meeting of the Village of Manan to order on September the 15th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. at the Manan Community Center. And Deputy Mayor Sturgeon will offer prayer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us all pray. Lord, we're so thankful that we live in the free country that we do. Thank you, Lord, for democracy, Lord God. And thank you, Lord God, that most people in this world, Lord God, can only dream of how good that we would have it, Lord, on our worst day. And let us never forget that. Lord, like Solomon of old, we pray for wisdom to lead the people. And we ask in Jesus' wonderful name, amen.
Amen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Manan has done well with no reported cases of COVID-19. Let's keep up the wearing of masks and social distancing. The weather has been great, but we can feel the fall in the air. There are a lot of dry wells on the island, and we need some rain before we end to freeze up. Well, the election of 2020 is over, and Premier Higgs has a majority with 27 seats. Also, it's been the first time since 2003 that a government has been reelected. Congratulations to the winning MLAs and a great thanks to all the candidates for offering the services. Tonight on the agenda we have the animal bylaw. There's a lot of talk that this is council's wishes. Council is doing this. This is not council's wishes. This bylaw was not the idea of council, but the items that are on here are there because of the concerns of islanders that have been brought to council. We take their concerns very seriously and try to prevent dangerous dogs and other animals running freely. We have a poop and scoop bylaw that should be taken seriously. We are trying to protect the people that have their dogs on the Seal Cove Sand Beach or the North Edge Sand Beach running loose, and them doing their job on the sand beach and nobody bothering to pick it up and kids playing. And it doesn't matter the size of a dog. There are people who are scared of very small dogs. A poodle will scare some people. So that's just that the idea that it is council's thing. It is not. It was the concerns that was brought to council by the public. Disclosure of conflict of interest. The adoption of the minutes of August the 10th, 2020.
Mr. Mayor, I would move the adoption of the minutes of August the 10th, 2020.
You heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Additions to the agenda. Oh, this piece of paper. The additions to the agenda. Letter from Nord Davison, proposed building bylaw. 11.3, a letter from Susan Ballantyne, animal control bylaw.
I would move to accept those additions to the agenda.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question?
Mr. Mayor, out of curiosity, and I hope no one takes this wrong, because anybody who takes the time to write a letter, you know, it's very important. It's something that's really on their mind. But we had 3 letters, which is fine tonight, which is great. But if we had 30, 40, 50 letters, would we take the time to read them all in council, or what is the policy there? And I'm asking this because this could be a real possibility sometime down the road, that's all. Something for council to think over.
So you don't need an answer right now?
Well, I don't know, but I don't need an answer right now, but it's something that we seriously should consider So,
We'll have the CEO look into that.
okay, thank you. Because we want answers, right? So,
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. They will be added on 11-2 and 11-3. The RCMP report, we have Constable Brian here with us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. My name is Constable Brian from Manan RCMP. I'll go over the occurrences for the month of August 2020. There were 2 calls of service for 2 occurrences regarding an assault, 1 for criminal harassment, 1 for possession of property obtained by crime, 1 for flight from police, another for identity theft, 3 for impaired driving, 1 for theft under, 3 for mischief, 2 for uttering threats, 1 for breach peace, 3 failed to complies or breaches of undertakings, 2 frauds under $5,000. Other calls were 7 false alarms or 911 hang-ups, 2 calls for assistance to the general public, 1 Fire Prevention Act, 2 reported items lost, 1 Coroner's Act call, 1 missing person or well-being check, 1 abandoned vehicle, 2 regarding municipal bylaws, 1 for police certificates, and then we've got 4 occurrences regarding check stops, 8 for Quarantine Health Act occurrences, 6 traffic violations moving, 3 other moving traffic violations, and then 1 charge for failing to stop or remain. That's it for the month of August.
Sounds like a busy month.
Was
So I'm going to ask a question that probably you don't have the information for. Anything on a new corporal coming?
Yep. As far as I know, that advertisement is closed, and it's through the process of vetting who would be next to come. In the meantime, until the new corporal comes, the RCMP has secured another officer to come for the next 2 months. He'll be here full time. He was a member that was here a couple months ago, and Les Brichette, a very experienced member who's retired and comes and travels, and so he'll be here for the next 2 months.
Well, we're pretty lucky then, aren't we?
He likes it here, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to him a couple of times.
Any questions?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Did you say a quarantine check, or what did you say?
Yeah, so sometimes we do get follow-ups from, I'm not sure if it's Health Canada or the equivalent of the CDC, but to follow up on maybe people from outside the country, and it's just maybe the health services were not able to contact them, so we follow up, make sure they're at their house.
Sure. Okay. And you had 8 of them last month, August?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. It's nice to know that somebody's keeping an eye on things.
Thank you very much. 8-1, old business, a new private road to be named. That has been taken care of. Melanie called and Tanner had to have a civic number. So we said, okay, what are we gonna do about names? And the names that they gave for the one going in was McLaughlin Lane, and the one that Tanner's going to be living on is James Lane. It was, you had to have a number to get insurance.
Yep.
So, Manzer took part in this. So now is the 10-minute open session. I thought Pete was gonna get up and say something.
I'm saving that.
Delegations or special, Samantha Tinker, questions brought forward from the public regarding proposed animal bylaw.
All right, good evening, everybody. On August 26, an open forum was held to discuss the proposed animal bylaws, which have been tabled by council until next month. Now, the forum was based on an open table discussion with everyone attempting to find solutions to the problems they had, not just to point out problems and send them to council. We didn't want to put more work on you guys. Equal weight was given to people who called, who emailed, who used social media, or if they were unable to attend. The goal was not to rewrite the bylaws, but to assist council in their endeavor to rewrite them. So to utilize time, I do have a few points that I'd like to put out in this. You guys got an email about it. It's on my public Facebook page. I've offered to email it to different people when they asked. So in section 1, we agreed that the animal bylaws do need to address issues or potential issues, and there do need to be penalties incurring. We're not asking for a free-for-all. We also agreed, though, that they should not focus on the amount of animals, how they're contained, or the sex of said animals. So in the definitions, and these are some definitions that are current right now, there were 11 that were cause for concern. So a couple of those were domestic animal. The definition is just too vague. It can encompass pets, food source, tame animals bred for a specific reason. Basically anything from goldfish to bear can be put under domestic animal. Breaking the definition down into pet, livestock, dangerous pet, or wild animal can provide more understanding of the bylaws that council is attempting to enact. Going into the fenced-in area definition, I want to draw your attention there. So first, we are absolutely in agreement 100% that it is the owner's responsibility to keep their animal home by any means necessary. There's no argument about that one. If it's not your property, your animal shouldn't be there unless you have permission from the owner. That doesn't always mean fences, though. So containment can include, but isn't limited to, natural boundaries, harnesses, tethers, pens, fences. Also, we noticed traditional materials weren't defined, so our suggestion was just to remove that term. As long as the fence is safe for the property owner, as well as the animal, defining what materials a fence can be made of only creates unnecessary limitations. If anyone did feel a fence was unsafe, though, for a person or for an animal, that's where the SPCA should be contacted. If it's not safe for a person, it's probably not safe for an animal either. So going into shelter, it's the same idea. There's already provisions in place to handle complaints of buildings or fences on a neighboring property. Now, I spoke to Manser on Tuesday, September 8th, and that was because the building codes kind of overlapped with, or the development bylaws kind of overlapped with the animal bylaws and sections. So animal fencing and outbuildings are not actually part of the National Building Code of Canada. Unless council creates a bylaw specific to them, they're not part of his responsibility, they're not on him at all. Now, he did note that an inspection would remove any concern of a fence or a structure built on somebody else's property. However, if there was a problem that couldn't be resolved between neighbors, he also suggested civil court might have to be used. So in the case of animals, if you're building on somebody else's property, you put animals on there, chances are you're going to have to go to civil court because there's going to be almost immediate damage to property. So I'm going to skip over section 3. In section 4, we did recommend that council removes the registration of all animals, excluding dogs, which is provincially mandated. Now, we've seen the limitations of a dog registry. It does not stop somebody from creating a nuisance. It doesn't stop a neighbor from having a problem with a dog. The role of the registry of animals, it's controlling what somebody can and can't do with their own property. It has nothing to do with the situation at hand in Grand Harbor. If somebody doesn't have their animals at home or they're a problem, a true complaint-based bylaw is going to involve somebody calling, making a complaint with information as to how the animal is being cared for, how often the animal is getting out, who owns the animal. It's going to give more information than a registry is. So in section 5 and 6, we noticed that the rabies section of the bylaw only includes the 3-year shot. There is sometimes still a 1-year shot given. So we wanted the bylaw to address that. And then in section 14 of the bylaws, under fees and tariffs, I wanted to point out that the majority of these aren't fees and they're not tariffs. So they're licenses, and then there's something for an unlicensed domestic fowl or domestic animal. I think that would be a fine. If you don't register your animal, you can incur a fine. So skipping over 5 and 6 on my page, actually I skipped over 7 and 8 when I wrote this, going into 10. So in Appendix A of the proposed bylaw, we'd strongly agree that a nuisance is not based on the size of a property, but the actions and decisions of an owner. So a person with a large property can still be a nuisance. The situation in Grand Harbor, I'd argue he has the perfect spot for pigs. He really does. He's at back. He's not causing a problem, apart from when they get loose. So large property does not mean that you're not going to have a nuisance. We'd also like to note that while there are noise bylaws already on Grand Manan, and there's this animal bylaw, it doesn't actually address animal smell in here. So you have a bunch of pigs living next door, you might want to have a bylaw about that. So on the flip side, a person with a small property can mitigate the same nuisances if they're responsible. I have about half an acre. So I ensure my chicken coop and containment are cleaned out weekly. I ensure that they're in their pen before 8 o'clock at night. I choose to be respectful of my neighbors. It's really not that difficult if you're a good animal owner. So there's already provincial laws in place in regards to animals and the amount allowed on property before having it zoned differently. Councillor Sturgeon, I believe in the buzz that you likened the amount of animals allowed on one's property to laws enacted to distance one's sewer from one's well.
Well, things are done for public health,
Yeah.
yes. For
So
reasons,
I
yes.
can quote you on that. If you have less than an acre, you will be allowed up to 10 fowl and no hooved animals. If you have an acre or more, it's 25 fowl and up to 3 hooved animals.
Sure,
This is for public health reasons, much like having an acre to allow for lots of room for water and sewer.
that's right.
Yep.
It's a similar idea, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay.
So the issue is that the distance from like a septic tank to a well is actually only 50 feet. With animals, it's the same idea. You don't need an acre. And there's already laws in place about that. So I'd like to note also that the bylaw doesn't actually say 3 hooved animals, nor does it say that the amount of land is subject to only 3 hooved animals. Specifically, it says domestic animals, 3 or less per acre. Yep.
Just the reason why I put it, and you're correct on that.
Yep.
Okay, it's just that usually when people think of domestic animals, I try to put it in layman's terms as much as possible. And so when you think of a goat or a pig or a horse or whatever, they got hooves. So
Yep.
it just kind of makes things a little more simpler. That's all.
No, that's fine. And that is one way to put it, I suppose. But what we've ended up happening is looking at the domestic animals. It means any of the various animals such as those defined in this bylaw so as to live and breed in a tame condition. So to confirm now, we've included a variety of animals. You could include pigs, turkeys, seasonal animals slaughtered for meat. You could actually include some pets in there if you wanted to. And we've also jumped into if the animal's living but not breeding, does that count as a domestic animal? Because it says living and breeding. So I'm also going to argue that most people do ensure that the feet of their animals are not burned or that they contract fungal infections by excrement, and they found ways to dispose of the waste properly. So there is a distance needed for barns to stand from wells. It's not an acre. It's about 150 feet, I believe, a little bit less. And that's the same idea as pasturing. But when we hear about things like, I don't know, people contracting salmonella from chickens, it's not because their well water was contaminated. It's because they didn't wash their hands properly after handling eggs that had fecal matter on them. We all know the importance of washing your hands now.
That's true.
So when it comes to numbers, when it comes to examples, things like that, when you're offering information to the public, my personal recommendation would be trying to clear up misinformation to be as exact as possible. Because what's happening is it's not, even using hooved versus domestic animals, it's still not 3 hooved animals per any amount of property, it's 3 per acre. So in trying to clear up misinformation, you actually gave some misinformation. So I'm gonna say, if you're getting them wrong, and you've been, I think you're what, the chairman of the bylaw committee?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're getting them wrong on a once a month article, I mean, they're pretty convoluted. Like, they're easy to confuse.
I wouldn't say they're wrong. You could take it one way or the other, I mean, kind of thing. We're still working on this, Sam. I mean, we are. Believe it or not, we do listen. I mean, we do. We're still gathering information on this. And we have tabled it, Councillor Fitzsimmons, for 2 months because we do want to get up-to-date, relevant information. And yes, we do find out stuff, so.
No, that's fine. So in 11, I want to move past the misinformation, if that's okay. The
Sure.
forum also focused on Stephanie Fleet's current responsibilities as the dog constable and the assumption that she's going to be the animal bylaw officer. So for clarification and transparency, she's my mom. But first and foremost, we want to petition council to look into the cost of insurance for her. And before the animal bylaws are changed, let the public know their decision and why. So for 15 years, she has been dealing with dogs that have bitten. She's been dealing with dogs that have proven they're aggressive, that are nervous if found running, that could be injured. And she's also caused to euthanize dogs in emergency situations. So we're aware it's a contracted job, and we're aware this is a little unusual, but we'd expect our island's contracted employees to have basic health coverage if they're dealing with something dangerous. I don't believe that there's been a dog constable on the island in the past that has not held another job while doing this. It doesn't pay enough to be a full-time job. So if somebody gets bit by a dog, or heaven forbid, they get mauled by some farm animal, they could lose all their. So health coverage is kind of the basic minimum that we could do for them. In 12, again, we don't believe that limiting the animals is going to be necessary, but we would like to know how the bylaws would be implemented if they are going to limit animals by number and sex. So Appendix A doesn't have a designated space for registering roosters. It specifically says roosters 0, and I did confirm with the council member that that's how they took it as well. So what does council propose we do with additional chickens, roosters, hooved, or domestic animals that go up over the proposed limit? So there's no grandfather clause in place. It really goes against the ethics of owning livestock to just kill them just because. And most people aren't going to kill a rooster that they've had for a couple of years that's turned into kind of a pet. Now in 13, so the proposed bylaws address dogs and don't actually address the concerns of the residents that are being harassed by livestock. The running at large section, which is section 6 in the index, section 7 in the bylaws, addresses dogs. And while dog control is changed to animal control in the index, the title of 7 still does read running at large and dog control. So fierce or dangerous dogs addresses dogs, not animals. The term animal is included in section 9.1, impounding, specifically B subsection 10 and 11. And the bylaws don't act private property. 11 is damaging property, which is not the owner of the property. So if pigs are just walking through and they're not causing damage and they're not dangerous, I mean, there's no bylaw for this problem right now. Now, there could be an attempt made in 9B3, which is running at large. However, B, which is section 9, it also specifically references dogs. So in fact, 10 and 11, which derive from the subsection of B, if you've been able to follow along, may not be valid either. So the bylaw covers destruction of dogs, again, not another animal. Section 11, which is the fowl, bovine, pigs, horses, and goats, does state that there's to be a registration with the village and that these animals are permitted where the development officer allows or approves according to lot size for the appropriate amount of animals. Now, as noted before, a registry is useless to keeping animals home. So that's especially true if their bylaw has no penalty if somebody chooses to ignore it. The only penalty for animals, excluding dogs, under these proposed bylaws is if you don't register them with the village. So I'm also going to add on some information that happened afterwards that also impacted the animal bylaws and our forum. So Robbie McPherson was quoted in the Telegraph, he's our CAO, that animal complaints aren't recorded. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm going to argue that without proper documentation of complaints, we end up getting very biased bylaws that are written in haste, become situational, and frankly can easily overstep. So furthermore, I'd like to see any complaint written down. You guys are in a unique situation right now where you very quickly lost 4 council members, and you no longer have their information unless you impede on their personal time. So having a written book of complaints or just councilors' information into interacting with the public is going to be useful. It would even help during a transition from one council to another. So I'm also going to address our mayor's comments in the Telegraph Journal. To quote, what the complaints are saying is we weren't consulted, but the biggest part of the population was telling us that this is what they wanted, so this is what we went with. I believe I got that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So if the biggest part of the population were talking to council about this, I'd actually like to know how you polled them, because I missed it. Now, I have 585 signatures here from Ian Spicer that have people going, we don't want these bylaws as they are. It's not that we don't want the bylaws. We want Lenny and Laurel to be protected. I'd like to be protected. I'm one of the people that went through this. The problem is that we don't want the bylaws as they are. So the other thing is realistically, when your constituents are concerned about something, especially concerned enough to hold a forum, there needs to be an olive branch. There needs to be something from our mayor that says, hey, you know, you guys did this and we'd love to hear your information, but we got nothing. And that's fine, that's okay. But I'm just saying, as the mayor of Grand Manan, I would have expected more. So in conclusion, I do want to thank every person who attended this forum. We saw about 25 people. Our mayor did show up. We had 3 or 4 counselors show up. We had Robbie show up. It was a really good time, and we had a lot of great information come in from it. So this reminded me that we need to expect more from our bylaws, and we really do need to demand to be involved. And we should expect to be able to formulate an opinion about a bylaw being read before it's being read at council. We should want an official hearing of objections and for the public to be involved. And we're not accepting 12 to 2 on a weekday afternoon where we can come in and ask questions as an appropriate time or format for future town hall meetings. It's not working because people are working. Also, when there's a hot button topic, we would like to see a town hall within a reasonable time frame. We said about a month. So you guys do have the solutions to the problems with these proposed bylaws, and it's within the constituents of Grand Manan. And there are some problems. The proposed bylaws are not strong enough to protect against negligent owners, which is unfair to the people being promised intervention by council. I've heard several complaints from some members of council about people not being involved, and especially about young people not being involved. We had some amazing minds, young, older, willing to speak at this forum. We have an amazing community, and council needs to utilize that. The put-downs about age that I've personally heard, no matter how accurate they seem to you, need to stop. If you want the community's help, what I've noticed is all you have to do is ask. Social media, emails, letters, phone calls, face-to-face, and at meetings need to hold the same weight now. Your constituents cannot be judged as having a lack of interest because they need to pay the bills. You notice not a lot of people were here tonight. It's because the lights are on. So we can't get this done without council, but we do want it done. We do want people to have protection from livestock that's running through their property that's causing a problem. We just don't want it done this way. So thank you. Give this to...
I said Samantha Tinker, that's the way it was on my...
It's okay. It's Mackenzie Granger now.
But I have a question I'd like to ask. Of those 565 people, how many read the animal bylaw?
It was attached. So it was attached right on the back. But as far as the signatures go, nobody sat down and cajoled anybody to sign it. It was just put up in convenience stores so that we could try to be a little bit more COVID friendly. But it was 585, and honestly, I really need to thank Ian Spicer for doing that, because that was a fantastic idea. I mean, it was quick, it was off the top of his head, but it kind of gave us an idea of how many people didn't want these bylaws. And I think that seeing a subcommittee and seeing people's ideas from people that have animals and that are the experts, because I'm not the expert. I have 4 chickens right now. I'm no expert. But having those people would be fantastic.
I've always said it's not the animals, it's the owners.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
Well, I kind of question if 535 people or whatever read the animal bylaw. I have a hard time reading it. I've read it, tried to go through it. I've read this report. But I think people are concerned because they don't want to lose their animals. I think that what the Councillor Sturgeon said it's been brought up. It's a work in progress. I was to attend your forum. It's great. There was some good things happening. You had some questions and answers. Bulletin, Bristol board on the hockey glass walls, and ideas done. You were brainstorming. You did a great job coordinating that.
Thank you.
So now that we've got this information, and we've got you, I guess, as the spokesperson for that group,
Suppose.
are you proposing to come and, we did this with the building bylaw, we had an open house, but maybe on this, have you been challenged or given the authority to act on behalf of the group and work with the bylaw committee to try to bring this together to its amicable conclusion?
I definitely think that we could have a group come together. If you wanted 3 or 5, 3 to 5 people come in, I think that we could have that happen. It would have to be more than likely in an evening. But
I think it's an important topic, and I've got a nuisance dog. If I don't put her on a leash on the clothesline to run around 50 feet, she'll be down at the bait shed
yep,
and wagging her tail and licking all the tourists' knees. So
Yep.
I try to keep her away from those situations.
yeah.
Other than that, chickens, pigs, horses, I can't comment too much on that, but obviously there's people in your group who have those animals and are more in tune to how to take and work it with the Grand Manan society to make it work for everyone.
I absolutely think that if you take some of the members or some of the forum attendants' expertise and put it in there, you're going to have a stronger bylaw. Mansur actually mentioned that across Canada, the animal bylaws for municipalities were pretty weak. And just in general, animal laws tend to be extremely weak. So if we had some form of subcommittee, if we were able to have people that had animals and were expertise on their animals helping build the bylaws, we could end up being the municipality that people go to get their animals bylaws from.
I don't make those final decisions, but any work that you could do would take a lot off my shoulders in time.
I am happy to help out, and I know at least 2 others that would be.
That's just a comment from a person that's on the committee, but I'd
Mr.
leave
Mayor,
it to
do
the
you have
chair.
any-
I'd leave it to the chairman and the mayor to decide that.
There was an issue about cats too.
There was. I actually got a hold of Kevin, who had brought up the issue of cats. Now, Sussex was the only place that dealt specifically with cats, and most of Grand Manan's issues, I would say, have to do with feral cats or with colonies. Sussex pays, I believe the person I was speaking with said around $1,200 a month, and that deals with dogs and cats. There's no separation, but it only deals with domestic cats. So unless you can get people to register their cat, be it for free or a nominal charge, they will not deal with the cat. Now, the other funny thing is that Sussex only has 3 people with registered cats this year, and all 3 of those people are on council. So she even said it's not working there. But she did say that the group like the Grand Manan Animal Welfare League, they have Karma and SOS. They have been phenomenal. They've been lowering feral rates for the last little bit. They've been working on getting feral kittens adopted. So basically what we're doing with the Animal Welfare League is working. And we have seen a lot of success. The Anchorage is down to, I think it was 1 cat left, when they used to have dozens. We've actually seen the first kitten boom in the last, I don't even know how many years. I've seen 3 or 4 people advertising they've got kittens for sale. That doesn't happen anymore. Kittens to give away, I should say. That doesn't happen anymore because people get their cats fixed for a low cost at the spay and neuter clinic, and that would be October 3rd and 4th. Call me.
So this is all starting up again because of COVID, it sort of,
Yep, I took on the Animal Welfare League
Right.
spay and neuter clinic this year.
and a lot of the people were getting a little older, members.
They are very young at heart.
Okay. Sounds
I'm
good.
not going to say that.
Okay.
But no, they definitely need volunteers, and they
You
need,
need volunteers.
new ideas are always useful. Having volunteers in anything is a wonderful thing. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, well, I look forward to hearing from you.
So the next item on the agenda is 11, correspondence, a letter from John Williamson, Re Woodward's Cove Wharf. Dear Mr. Williamson, thank you for your correspondence of May the 19th regarding the Woodward's Cove Wharf on Grand Manan Island. I regret the delay in responding. As you know, we are living in unprecedented times in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Government of Canada is taking action to help. As Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard, I am committed to providing the Canadian fisheries sector with the support needed so it continue to provide the world with high-quality, sustainable source fish and seafood. To learn about the measures the government is taking to support Canadian in business, I encourage you to consult the website of Canada's COVID-19 Economic Response Plan and the Fisheries and Oceans Canada DFO website for COVID-19 information for industry and partners. The Woodward's Cove Harbor on Grand Manan was closed in 1997 because of deteriorating infrastructure and low water depth in the area. DFO Small Craft Harbors SCH program has recently completed a cleanup of the debris from the wharf structure. In short terms, SCH plans to move forward with an important project at North Head Harbor, which will include capital dredging. Small Craft Harbors exploring using the rock generated from this project to encapsulate the Woodward's Cove Wharf. While there are no plans to reconstruct the Woodward's Cove Wharf at this time, the department is aware of the work of the Grand Manan Harbor Authority is undertaking to seek long-term solutions. DFO maintains ongoing communications with Grand Manan Harbor Authority to various options and strategies To alleviate operational harbor pressures on Manan. The department also continues to seek and encourage collaborative partnerships solving provincial and federal counterparts, aquaculture, commercial fishing industry representatives, and other users in the long-term infrastructure needs of the island. Rest assured, DFO will continue to deliver on his mandate during these times. The unpredictability of this situation continues to be a challenge, and our response will continue to evolve. Once again, thank you for writing. I hope the information I have provided helpful. The Honorable Bernadette Jordan, PC, MP, Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard. Any comments?
There is a plan to take that stuff from North Head and put it over or to bury what's there in rocks, isn't there?
I think Councillor Morse is more qualified to answer that question than I am.
That is the intent, assuming that there is excess rock from North Head that's not needed for the project up there.
Okay.
I think this is something that's been in the plans for quite a while.
Yeah, it was announced last August. It will be the construction of a marginal wharf essentially across from the old post office up there. It will require some blasting to create, but there should be some rock, but we're going to need to use some there to bring it up to elevation with the road because there's such a drop off from the road down to the water. So depending on how much rock is left over, whatever's left will go to Woodward's Cove to cover the wharf.
Any other questions?
Yes, I was interested to see that they mentioned that there was a cleanup done by small crabs in Henderson, which is, I'm glad to hear, because I know that was a concern of former councillor Ingersoll. So when was this done, I guess?
It was done within, I'm gonna say 3 weeks of the storm.
It
Oh,
was
really?
shortly after, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool,
Yeah.
great.
Dutchman
It- Yeah.
took care of that.
It just took the time to get the quotes and get the funding in place to do it.
I'm quite impressed that it took only 3 weeks, really, because of that.
So we're happy with that.
Yeah.
So, okay, a letter 2, number 11-2 was a letter, and while we were just dealing with the animal control bylaw, this would be good to have this right now. Dear Mayor Green, Deputy Mayor Sturgeon, and Member of Council, 3, Animal Control Bylaw. I have carefully reviewed the proposed bylaw several times and have a number of concerns with it. First, in some respects, the bylaw goes further than it needs to. For example, it prohibits roosters and requires hens to be fenced. This seems extreme. It would seem more sense to prohibit a nuisance. For example, some, not all roosters can be aggressive. I can understand prohibiting aggressive roosters from running at large, but not prohibiting all roosters. Why prohibit a well-behaved rooster? They are useful creatures, and to many people they're an important part of their life. Admittedly, they can be noisy, but so are crows and early morning trucks and salmon farms. Similarly, why do we want to require all hens to be fenced? My hens free range all day. They are not a nuisance to anybody. They help keep down the tick population that stay on our property, except for daily visits to Maud Hunter, who loves their company. Why would you require me or anyone else in this situation to go to the expense of erecting a fence? It would be different, in my view, if my hens or anyone's hens caused damage to a neighbor's garden. This should be prohibited. Similarly, what possible reason is there to require owners of hens to register each hen? As well, there is no license fee for domestic animals, so all our taxes will pay for someone to take down the requisite information, store it, and issue the license. I can think of several good uses of our tax dollar. Second, the bylaw does not address aggressive or destructive behavior on the part of any animal except dogs. Paragraph W of Section 2 defines running at large domestic animals, but surprisingly, the legislation does not prohibit running at large domestic animals, which is either aggressive or destructive. The proposed bylaw would require me to fence my hens, but does not make it an offense for me to get out and destroy a neighbor's garden, for them to get out. These are my major concerns, but there's some others as well. For example, the bylaw includes the definition of fierce or dangerous dog. A dog that is kept for the purpose of security protection, really? If Maud felt more secure having a dog, that would make her dog fierce or dangerous. First, Section 4 specifies there is no license fee for domestic animals, but this appears to contradict Section 14, which says the animal license fee for unregistered domestic animal fowl is $100. I hope this is possible. I copied Sam McCaig on this because she expressed an interest in seeing it before her roundtable discussion on October the 26th. It's kind of strange to me if those don't get on the road. I've damn near got 2 of them. So the next one is I don't know where I put my agenda.
Do you have a copy of the letter from Mr. Davison, Mr. Mayor?
No, I was going to get, yeah, I do, but you can read it.
Okay, I can read it?
Sure.
Sure, okay. Okay, Nora J. Davidson, 47 Brownfield Road, Grand Manan, New Brunswick, August 30th, 2020, Council of the Village of Grand Manan, proposed building bylaw. I will not be attending the public meeting scheduled for September the 2nd of 2020, as I'll be off island working. I do wish to take this opportunity to publicly share my comments on this proposed bylaw. These are statements of my opinion and are meant as suggestions for the consideration of the council and others. Section 1, normal maintenance. Is the phrase all other repair work meant to be part of an exclusion or part of the definition? Suggest permit includes a demolition permit and building permit and does not include development permit. Why are there references to signs without substantial guidelines? If not necessary, then delete sign references. Section 6.1. Any reasonable time should be referenced or defined. Who decides what is reasonable? Any premises? Even if not referencing a building permit issue, delete this section. See Section 14. Section 9.1E. What information may be required for a building inspector? This leaves it open for potential arbitrary requests or inconsistent requests, which will be problematic for both the village and the residents. Okay. Section 9.2 is really a definition of the structural drawings and can be moved to the definition section. Sections 10.2 and 10.3 are overlapping and confusing. It could say the fees are scheduled in the fees are published in Schedule A and renumber the rest of S10. Section 10.6. I would suggest Schedule B be the cost to use to determine a permit fee when the inspector deems the estimate too low. Construction costs change, and it's easier to reference the schedule for this. The section can simply refer to Schedule B and migrate all the subsections into the schedule. Now, Section 11 is new and will cause a significant cost and time factor increase for buildings being constructed. I am not a builder, and I do not know if a surveyor's real property report is mandated in the building code or somewhere else. But this is a big change for people. Hiring a survey, paying a surveyor, and getting someone to Grand Manan to perform the work adds significantly to the owner's process, timeline, and early costs added to the project. Sections 12.2 and 12.3 should be combined, such that one or the other situation will cause the permit to be void. Under Sections 12.7, in fact, all terms in the current Schedule B are actions requiring permits, and the schedule has no title. Why do we have this? Section 14 makes Section 6.1 redundant and is much better stated. Section 18, insert reasonable here. Section 19, fine provisions. First, any owner or agent not following the provisions of the building code should face bigger fines than Category B POP Act offenses. The whole point here is to make construction projects adhere to building code provisions, which is to make safer for occupiers present and future. Precious little deterrents here. This invokes the ticketing and potential court processes involved and the Provincial Offences Procedures Act. Can we access any?
And
Okay, thank you. Can we access because there's a little space there, collect fines and penalties higher than stated? Should we? Also, please revise the numbering on section 22 contains repeal provisions. And section 21 is the amendment provision. Yours truly, Nora Davidson, Esquire. I hope that's, it's the same for female as male, Esquire, but thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Well, we'll take both of those ones under consideration, the dog bylaw and the building bylaw. So number 12.1 is ferry summer schedule ending on Sunny. Councillor Morris?
Thank you. A few weeks ago, I think 3, I don't have the date right in front of me, we had a meeting with Coastal Transport and the province. It was our regular ferry committee meeting. And one of the things that we talked about was the summer schedule for the Grand Manan 5. It normally ends on Saturday, which means that the Sunday of that weekend tends to be a day that there's a lot of left behinds, particularly on the last trip out of Blacks Harbor, the 5:30 and the 3:30 off of Grand Manan, just because people are finishing up their weekend and we're down one ferry. It becomes particularly problematic in the years when the Adventure is going to dry dock and we're down to the 5 instead of just the Adventure. So we requested at that meeting that the province look at extending the summer schedule to end on the Sunday instead of the Saturday, to at least be able to finish out that weekend. And we wanted to bring it back to council to make sure that there were no significant objections to this request, but it seemed to make sense based on what we could see of the traffic numbers over the last several years. Is
So
that a
you're
fair
making, you're
assessment?
making that a motion?
I
that
am
we-
making that a motion, sure I am.
To get a letter to
Province
people in DTI.
requesting to extend the summer schedule till at least the Sunday.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question?
Question, do you mean like is in this Saturday? Is it like the third Saturday of September?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't apply obviously for 2020 because
Of
there's
course.
not enough time, but for
It ends
2020.
on the 19th.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but for 2021, instead of ending on the Saturday night, it would end on the Sunday.
It makes
night.
sense to me, so I was
Yeah.
just curious, that's
No.
all.
Any other question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. A resolution for the capital borrowing bird interim financing for the proposed wellness center.
On the last council meeting last month, we had a resolution to ask the borrowing board to borrow $800,000. And at that time, I told council that sum would be for the debenture and interim financing at the same time. Once that ended up in Fredericton, I got this little note from Sarah, and she says, I would suggest for the full amount of grant funding as interim financing. It gives you authority to borrow if you need it. By asking for authority, council are in no way committed to borrowing that amount. It is just that there is an option if you need it. And if you open up a line of credit with your bank, you would pay interest on the balance outstanding at the given time, not the full authorized line. The interim financing is only good for 3 years. And the idea of the interim financing is council has to authorize any invoices, and then that's submitted to the both senior levels of government, and we get the money back at that time. So the information I told you last time was a little bit shy on money.
So we need a motion.
Yeah, but that for this resolution, I think.
Nobody's got a copy of it, have they?
Oh, that's where
Okay,
it is. Okay,
good.
gotcha. I thought I seen it somewhere, but I wasn't sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. Be it resolved that the municipality of the Village of Grand Manan submit to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board on application for authorization to borrow money for interim financing in an amount not to exceed $6.5 million for the following purpose, which is the Wellness Center Fund, and it's for the term of 3 years in the amount of $6.5 million. And I certify that the above is a true and exact copy of a resolution passed by the Council of the Municipality of Grand Manan on September the 15th, 2020.
So you're making that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Cheney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And just because this has gone this far, it still doesn't mean, we're just trying to be prepared if the people of Grand Manan accept it, that's all. Things are moving very slowly with the election taking place, but short time they should be getting back and moving along on this. Airport expansion update.
Up until this time, council has been trying to get financial assistance for not only repairing the airport, but also expanding, probably to the project right now is around $15.5 million. As you know, at this time, we have had no luck in getting anybody to give us a hand on this. It has been suggested that council should approach the expansion of the airport in two phases. The first one would be to repair what is there and expand the width of the runway. The airport is getting in such disrepair that we will be in trouble being able to use it year round in the very next or the very near future. There is a new grant or that has come out in the last month, and it's affiliated with COVID. Reading through the criteria, most of it is upgrading hospitals, expansion, or exhaust and stuff for schools and that type of thing. But one of the criteria is health. My idea of putting it forward is our Medivac. I mean, they're well recorded. We need that. I put the question to Fredericton about 2 weeks ago, and the only thing I got back was saying who owns the airport. If it's federal, they won't look at it. But with the elections over, there should be some more decisions makers around that we may get a favorable answer. The grant would be 80% from Ottawa and 20% from provincial government. In your package there is a quote that what would take place, and with GST and whatever in there, it's around $8 million. so probably 7 million to do it. And it has to almost be ready, or shovel ready. They have, they want to start and get done by, I think by end of next fiscal year, not 2021. And most of the stuff is already, has been done with the expansion and so on. So that's where it's at, and if there's any questions or whatever, I would ask the council to, give permission to approach this expansion on the airport with phase 2, 1 and 2, and this is phase 1.
So what are you saying?
You need a motion for that? Or
I
do you
would
just-
like that on the record, that, council today says this is good, and just say that we go with phase 2. Like I said, we flogged the expansion up until this time, and had no answer at all. And this here's, if this goes, it's about half of the price. So,
Question, Mr. Mayor, does the CAO mean phase 1? then
Yes.
Instead of phase 2, and then it's a cost of $8 million?
Phase 1.
This phase 1 to be around between 7 and 8 million.
Yeah.
And then about half of what's, of the total project.
Sure.
So this is to repair and widen.
What's
Yes.
there now, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I'd move that you go and approach for these funds to do the repair and widening of the airport.
The phase 1.
Phase 1.
Yep.
You heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Recreation Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Silk Cove Playground project was officially announced, I guess, from our MLA in our campaign mail-out, which was good. Now that was officially announced, the playground committee officially kicked off their fundraising campaign. I think there was a brochure that went around all the different mailboxes explaining the situation and what they were looking at. I think right at this point, we're waiting for a survey to be done down there to find out exactly where that land never existed, where it's so new. I think we need to find out exactly what's there and what's ours before we go digging around and putting playground equipment on something that may not belong to us. So I think the CAO has been in contact with the surveyors, and that process has been started. The community center, it's been a quiet summer here, but as we fall into the fall season, we really need to come up with a plan to try to get our user groups back inside after the weather turns. I know the pickleball group have been asking quite regularly what the plan is for the fall, as well as we need to figure out what we're going to do with the fitness center. Right now, the girls that are currently working there are on the Canada Summer Jobs Program, which will be ending soon. So once the weather turns, we need to come up with a situation for what we're going to do with that once that happens. Just to try to get everyone back inside. The baseball season, it could be done tonight. The softball was in game 4 of their best of 5 finals. Depending on who won, it could have been over, but if not, Thursday will be their final night. T-ball and baseball wrapped up in Castalia last week. They had a great summer, big turnouts. If any of you have driven by, huge crowds lined up on both sides of the road. which was great to see after all the work that went into getting it ready. It was great to see it used. I think now that we're in budget season, it might be something we should look at, maybe putting a little bit more money up in there. I know Councillor Cheney and myself went up and looked at the possibility of putting some armor or stone to try to prevent the erosion of the bank any further. I mean, eventually we will lose that if something isn't done. We were approached Sunday night, I think it was, that the high school found out that they were going to be able to have high school sports. So the baseball come up, and they were wondering about Seal Cove. But unfortunately, since then, this morning I had a call from the school saying that there was an email sent out that because of the schedule, and this is all going to be exhibition play, they were unable to secure any teams to come down to play the local team. So as of right now, we've worked with them, and the coaching staff, to be able to utilize Grand Harbor to do their practices. And as of right now, there won't be any home games. So. For any of you that have been up around the harbor to see the outdoor courts, we're at about, I would say, 95% complete, which is basically everything except for the fencing. The fencing was the first thing that was supposed to have been completed, and here we are going into our 5th week that they're behind schedule. There's been a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls go in. Hopefully we have the schedule down, that they'll be here this weekend to get that finalized. For those of you that have seen it, I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's certainly a facility, the first one of those facilities that has ever been here. I mean, it is something to be proud of, for sure. And I think when the time comes, I think we certainly need to recognize everyone that contributed to that program. I know the village is probably the biggest contributor. Besides that, Rotary, as usual, a huge supporter. I know our MLA and the province has got money in, as well as a private donor. So like I said, when the time comes for that, we certainly should recognize them. But it'll be great to get that finished. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully the fence will go up this weekend so they'll be able to start using it. I know the pickleballers have been, they've been asking. The arena. Right now, the arena is going in full swing. It's taken on most of the time of ours this past month, just getting everything ready, the floor cleaned, the degreaser added to try to make sure every little bit of stuff that may be on the floor has come off, the final scrub. Startup of the machine. Charlotte County Refrigeration was here for startup. They initially found an oil leak in the number 2 compressor, which was a bit concerning, but since then they've done some digging. And we found that there was a loose bolt on one of the base heaters on the bottom. Since we've been watching that for the last week or so, and it seems to have stopped, which is great. Weak fuses in the machine has also played some havoc the last few days. I think I replaced a total of 9 fuses in the first 3 days. For some reason, that type of fuse, if it sits in the machine over the summer, gets weak. But I finally got those fixed, and the machine's been running pretty seamlessly the last 7 days. We actually started spraying water on it yesterday morning. We've got 13 passes on there so far. We've got about 73 left to go, which is it is a lot. But anyway, we're looking at a projected start date of probably October 1st. I've also been working on the COVID plan for the arena. Most of the municipalities have theirs done in draft form, which is great that everyone is sharing theirs back and forth. So I have most of those with me that we're just kind of take bits and pieces. But I guess the biggest thing on all of the different drafts are social distancing, masks, what to do with the dressing rooms, because most of these older arenas around the city are 40, 50 years old, and the dressing rooms are small. There's no room. So the question is whether or not to use the dressing room. And spectators. What to do with them. Most of them aren't opening other than just to their skaters. Spectators aren't able to come in during this first phase, but and what to do about disinfecting between the user groups. Hopefully I'll have a draft done by the time our next regular meeting, which is probably only in a couple weeks now, but we'll get that draft out so everyone to have a look and pick it apart, hopefully have it in place by the time we open. So, any questions?
So you're actually starting up, like, the arena, like, for, put into use, I guess, shall we say?
The machine's been on for about 12 days. We started putting the ice in yesterday morning.
Because I talked to a lot of different communities, and they're still not sure what they're doing yet. I mean, because of COVID restrictions and what they can do and what they can't do. And
Yep. St. Stephen has theirs in. St. Stephen put theirs in late summer as soon as restrictions were lifted enough to be able to put the ice in. Of course, Pam is scheduled to put ice in the Q-Plex only at the end of September. Right now, the tentative schedule for the QMA, which is the older rink, is after Christmas. Rossay is scheduled for theirs. One of the St. John arenas has currently got ice in. I got the operational plan for one of the other ones. I got the operational plan for Hampton. They're scheduled to put theirs in at the end of the month, as well as Sussex. So I think the majority of them now are ready. The only ones that may not be are municipalities that have more than one, if they think that they can utilize the ice time with one at the first until they realize. Because right now, I think the biggest question is what to do with the adult user groups. Because if you look at, right now, I mean, the PSO for minor hockey dictates on what we can and can't do. And right now, in the current phase, which is phase 1, there's no games whatsoever. So it's organized practice, which is basically one kid in a puck in a station. Everything done around social distancing. So the question is what to do with the adult groups. I mean, obviously, if week 1 we can't let the kids play, the adult groups are going to have to be booked into the same type of a schedule. So unlike the kids, the adults probably aren't going to want to go in and practice 3 or 4 days a week for the next so many weeks. So I think they're worried about the lost revenue from that. But hopefully, if they get into phase 2 or phase 3 fairly quickly, they're looking at about 2 weeks separation between each phase as long as things stay on the current track. So hopefully they'll be playing before you know it.
okay. So there's nothing scheduled for games per se yet, then?
There's nothing scheduled right now. The way it works is when you start, you have to. Doesn't matter where everyone else is. You have to start with phase 1, and from the time you start, like if we start on October 1st, 2 weeks from that point, we can automatically go to phase 2, which phase 2 gives us a little bit more leeway as far as narrowing the social distancing, which means at that point, 2 people can join each other in a drill and maybe have something like 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, but still no structured games of any kind.
Okay, thank you.
You want to hurry up with those other 73 floods. Saul was out there tonight, lacing up his skates.
Well,
I
we
think
have any more
there's
days
quite a
like-
few young fellows there just chomping at the bit, ready to go.
There's very many days like yesterday. It was going to be
Yeah.
a long old chug.
He was just trying them on, make sure they fit. But,
Yesterday's heat and humidity wasn't working in our favor.
no.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is the library report. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to read the manager's report for June and September. Even though our summer programming was much different than originally anticipated, we are very pleased to offer a virtual online summer reading club experience to our community. This year's theme, health and wellness, read well, be well, was fitting for our current environment. There was 45 children registered for the SRC with a total of 1,645 books read by the end of the program. Online story times, craft, and science activities were developed by staff from the 5 New Brunswick library regions and posted on the New Brunswick library websites. In August, we were pleased to receive approval of the offer of a curbside pickup for K-5 reading kits. And Heather Ellick worked diligently to promote her summer programming on social media. She prepared summer reading clubs, coordinating grab-and-go bags and curbside pickup for K-5 reading kits. We'd just like you to watch for virtual online programming coming in the coming weeks. Library staff are currently learning new technical skills that will enable us to prepare and present online programming. We're looking forward to this new format and hope you'll join in the fun. In early September, curbside pickup become available for all patrons. With the end of the summer months, the beginning of the new fall routine, and the desire to limit physical contact, this service has begun to gain some interest. Throughout the summer weeks, all staff participated in collecting maintenance, prepare for new material, increase in open hours, and the return to the GMCS staff and students. And after working with WorkSafe New Brunswick and Fundy Library Region staff to develop and put in place an operational plan for health and safety procedures, we are pleased to reopen on Monday, June 8th. So they're open and going. Due to the health and safety requirements with limited hours, a maximum head count of 2, and limited services, on Monday, June 22nd, our maximum head count increased to 5. On June 22nd, we're pleased to, this is when they welcomed Heather Halleck as their Canada Summer Job student employee. Heather assists staff with the needs throughout the summer. She was tasked with the role of the greeter to ensure health and safety requirements were followed as patrons entered the library. Summer program assistance, collection, maintenance, and shelving. As in all things COVID, we are living in a fluid environment with health and safety requirements changing at a moment's notice. With the return of Grand Manan Community School staff and students, we are working with the school administrator to ensure we follow health and safety requirements to keep students safe. As a result, our health and safety procedures have been revised as appropriate. Even with COVID, it is important for our students to have access to the library material. We are again working with the GMCS staff to think outside the box to accommodate class visits. Tentatively, we plan to resume class visits in their new format on September 21st. On September 8th, we are extremely pleased to expand our open hours to better accommodate our public and Grand Manan Community School communities. We open at 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday. We are fortunate to be approved for the Youth Employment Fund employee. Emily Hartland Huckins begin working with us on August 17th. We are looking forward to working with Emily over the coming weeks as we resume additional library services, begin class visits, and learn to develop and present online programs. Staff are currently preparing to resume photocopying computer services. Watch for these 2 services. They should be available by the end of September. Information will be posted on our Facebook webpage and other groups. And for public relations and outreach, and we participate in the following: the past lending partnerships, and they participate with Huntsman's Fundy, Discovery Aquarium, and with King's Landing. So they're passes that you can go and get and enjoy these 2, the Huntsman and the King's Landing. And take your family and go with it. So that's that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzsimmons. 14.1 is the building bylaw. I'm going down again. Alyssa does that to me. Third reading of building bylaw by name only and enactment.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, does the letter from Ms. Davidson have any impact on that, or what's the reply to that? Those suggestions, are they valid, or is it, I don't, would it have been a reply to that, or?
I would think, Mr. Mayor, that we have had our lawyer go over to see if there's any anything legalities here in such regards. He recorded that there is not. He said political questions was more than anything else, and of course, and then policy. But then again, policy is what we do when we pass things. That becomes policy. If things doesn't pass, then it's not policy. I mean, we're in the process of creating policy right now.
So then,
But we haven't heard back from Mansar on this.
No, we have not heard back, but on the other hand, Manzer is the author of our, he's of the building bylaw, and he does have a successful record in creating and defending building bylaws. And so I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not the building inspector, but however, if the person is the author of it and has been able to defend that in similar places, then, and also as well, if our lawyers is, legally we're meeting everything's good, then I would think that we could proceed.
If, Councillor Cheney, if you have any concerns, table it for a month.
well, I don't know if I have all the information yet. I just think that maybe those were some valid points, but I don't know if they were or not.
We was hoping to get a reply from Mansar.
So, okay. Table it till next month, and Mansard's in here next week, Wednesday. Meet with him.
I would make that a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Tabling it for
Table it, yes, until we
Sorry,
get
Mr.
further report.
Yes.
Further report from the building inspector, Mansur, Young, and with regard to the letter by Ms. Davison.
You heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by, there's no question on the table, is there? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval to pay the following invoices: General Operating Fund, Service Master Restore, Annual Floor Stripping, $11,397.65. Beers Neal, Year-End Gas Tax Audit, $10,350.
That's usually my chair. I'm feeling much better about my seat tonight.
I want a new chair. Remember that. And I want my name on it. For at least for 6 months.
Yes, I suppose you would.
I would move to pay the aforementioned invoices from the general operating fund.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. General Capital Fund, Dutchman Contracting, Pickleball Courts, $56,925. Playtech Enterprises Tennis Court, $74,865.
Question, Mr. Mayor. This maybe has to go to the first. Guess someone probably has to take and make the first motion.
All right, I would move to pay those two invoices from the general capital fund.
Question. The new pickleball courts and the new tennis courts, it's all, that's...
All the same project.
Okay. I was up there maybe a week ago at the older tennis court, and I almost rolled my ankle in the cracks. I know I don't think we're trying to pay Tech Enterprises for the work that they didn't do that work that I experienced almost falling through the cracks.
Playtech fixed those.
Oh, very good.
Playtech's original quote was for them to be here for 5 days to surface the new court and fix the existing court. They were here for 12 days. And the majority of their days, 60% of the days, was fixing the old court.
I haven't been since, so.
You went up there now, you certainly would not roll your ankle.
Okay, sir, thank you.
It's brand new.
Very good.
I was there one day when they were doing it, and I was there with them for a while.
I was just gassed at the cracks, how wide they were, that's it.
It was in terrible shape.
They applied fiberglass mat, 3 layers. So what that is, it's an expansion joint. So that'll
Yes.
put the seal over that, but it'll give that crack room to move underneath, but you won't see it on the surface.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully they'll give us an additional 50 years for that court.
Councillor Cheney was still playing.
Yeah, I'm going to go at her.
Okay, all those in favor?
Hold Point of
need a
order, I
seconder,
don't,
though.
we need a seconder.
I thought you seconded it.
I second the last one, but I'll second this one too. I'm coming in
Thank you.
second tonight.
I wondered if I missed that, so thank you
No,
for bringing
no.
that up.
I thought,
Are paying of the general capital fund for Dutchman and Playtech. And the first one for $4,966.28 is for a bill we paid last month to Englobe for asset management. We just forgot to make the transfer because it was a last minute bill. So it's just transferring over to cover the bills that we're paying from the general capital fund.
do we have a motion for that?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. Have seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You gonna do the next one?
I just explained them. Someone has to read them all.
We knew what the motion was. So the next one is to transfer $74,865 from the gas tax fund to the general operating fund.
I'll second that. I'll move that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. We have a seconder.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Morse. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 16.3 is to transfer $56,925 from the gas tax fund to the general capital fund.
I'd make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
You heard the motion by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Morse. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Closed session. 17.1 is property, a transfer station property surplus. 17.2, wellness wetland alteration proposals and cost estimates.
I would move we adjourn to closed session.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse that we go to closed session. Do we have a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Call this meeting back to order after the closed session, and we were in closed session for a property transfer station property surplus, and also wellness wetland.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to declare the transfer station old trailer as surplus, and also to put it for RFP for 2 weeks.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next one was the Wellness Center.
I would make a motion that we contact the Department of Environment and have someone from their enforcement division, or wherever appropriate, come to examine the project area
As soon as possible.
as soon as possible.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next regular council meeting is the Grand Manan Community Center, Monday, October the 5th at 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Now, Councillor Morris.
Move to adjourn.
Heard the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. Good night.